Welcome to Purifying Your Senses, Class 1. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And it's a topic that requires you to expand your point of view. We're going to learn how our senses are connected to our body, our mind, and our highest consciousness. And through this series, we're going to learn how to use the awareness of the senses to purify the senses so that the movement between sensory input and bodily functions becomes enhanced, resulting in greater health, well-being, and happiness and longevity. So let's go ahead and get started. We always like to start by settling down. So allow yourself to come to a very wonderfully stable seat. If you're sitting in a chair, or if you're sitting up in bed, wherever you are, allow yourself to feel the bones in the hips to get really heavy and settled. Let the spine be tall. Eyes are closed, nice almond-shaped eyes. Allow the corners of the eyes to stretch back toward the temples. Very soft face. Begin breathing slowly. Breathe from the belly, not from the chest. Feel the breath flow in from the very tips of the nostrils, rising up the very center of the nasal passages, up into the third eye center. Find a smooth flow of breath. Mind immediately starts to quiet down, calm down. Very nice. So let's just close with the vibration of Om. Sit up nice and tall. Hands can be in any mudra. Big inhale. Very nice. Slowly open your eyes, and I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and we will begin purifying our senses, learning all about them. So here we go. Purifying our senses, class 1. What are the senses? So sometimes we don't really think so much about what these senses are, but we're going to learn all about that right now. Here we go. Here we go. So we're going to cover what are the senses, introduction to Samkhya philosophy. So this sounds lofty, and it's really not lofty, but it can be very expansive. So stay grounded, stay grounded, and enjoy this whole process. We're going to learn how our senses are connected with the 5 elements. We'll learn how our senses are connected with the organs in our body. Plenty of time for question and answer and guided meditation at the end. So for question and answer, you can always ask questions anytime you're viewing this on the learning portal, and I'll find the question and reply. So let's go ahead, take a deep breath, relax, let go of all your stresses, and get comfortable. And begin to clear your mind. We started this process already, but allow yourself to see yourself and your world with a very expanded point of view. We want to allow ourselves to contemplate that right now, in this very moment, you are inherently connected to everything in the entire cosmos. You're connected to the farthest reaches of our Milky Way galaxy and the billions of other galaxies far, far, far away, farther than you can even imagine. You're also inherently connected with the tiniest microscopic organisms here on the earth, living in the air, living in the soil, in the water, and inside the tissues of our body. We're going to play this wonderful, wonderful video from NASA. So we want to imagine that we can fully embrace the vastness of what we're connected to. So our powers of perception sometimes make it really small. But if you can expand your powers of perception to understand that you are intimately connected with the farthest reaches of the universe, the multiverses, the entire cosmos. And the technology that we have, it seems like an impossible feat to go into the furthest reaches of the cosmos, to photograph them through our Hubble telescope. Hubble didn't even come close to getting to where the farthest reaches of the cosmos expands into. So your awareness can go farther and is inherently connected with farther than that beautiful Hubble can capture. So you're a unique organism playing a vital role in the divine rhythm of the cosmic flow. There's a profound and powerful intelligence keeping the entire universe in perfect synchronicity. The same supreme intelligence that keeps our sun rotating in its perfect position in our galaxy, our Earth traveling in its perfect orbit, and our moon in perfect movement is the very same intelligence that keeps your heart beating, your blood flowing, and your lungs breathing. We are all part of an infinite intelligence that orchestrates and calibrates all the intricate functions in the pulsating web of the universe. It's fabulous when you think about it. So the ancient rishis and sages, the seers, thousands of years ago, understood this interrelationship, and they began to share their knowledge of how we can live in harmony with all of creation. So life is an ebb and flow, it's a give and take. We take in oxygen and we give back carbon dioxide. We share our presence with all life forms, organic and inorganic, seen and unseen. We help support our life. We help support all life. And life supports us. We exchange gifts with life in each and every moment. So it's beautiful to think about. You can find these wonderful images that NASA put up. They're all over, they're on the internet in many different places, but definitely on the NASA website. So we need to understand that everything in the cosmos can be found within us, and everything within us can be found within the cosmos. So Ayurveda, a foundational principle of Ayurveda is that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. There is no separation. So you've heard this, common saying that we're made of stardust. Well, we really are. We're made of the same molecules, the same building block material that made all of the billions of galaxies that we just took a little look into. So this is a wonderful concept that if we can do this one practice of always staying in our awareness that we are intimately connected with the entire cosmos at every nanosecond in time. There's never a time that we're separated, ever, ever, ever. So it helps us when we start to dive into what are our senses. We're going to immediately see how sometimes our senses can keep us in a place that is dense and small and constricted. And our senses can also keep us aware of our infinite nature. So one of the concepts in Ayurveda, a foundational concept again, is that everything in the cosmos is made up of 5 basic elements. Now, traditional Chinese medicine adds a couple more, but we break everything down into space, air, fire, water, and earth. And we see this throughout all of creation. So when we understand that we're made of this building block, it helps us understand the laws of nature. And when we understand the laws of nature, we can help ourselves heal. We can allow our minds to become sharper. We can create greater knowledge and greater happiness in our lives by knowing how things work, how things operate. We're not left in the dark. So it's important to always, always, always keep in mind the qualities of these elements. Well, this is foundational. So ether is clear, light, subtle, soft. It's infinite. Space is infinite. Air is mobile, dry, light, cold, rough, and subtle. Fire is hot, sharp, light, dry. It's also subtle. Water, cool, liquid, dull, soft, oily, can be slimy. And earth is heavy, dull, static, dense, hard, and gross. So understanding how our senses relate to the 5 elements helps us connect deeply within ourselves and with all of life, because we have a greater awareness of how these elements interact with one another, how we're all interrelated. Well, it requires you to take a little step out of your normal way of processing information and allow yourself to expand this concept. And we're going to continue to do this throughout the entire series. This is an introduction. So there is a wonderful philosophy called Samkhya philosophy. And Samkhya philosophy is one of the 6 philosophies that Ayurveda is founded upon, and it's the primary one. And Samkhya enumerated different qualities inherent in the cosmos. So we go from the most subtle to the most gross and dense. So we would like to, let me get my pointer up here. We'd like to understand that up here, the Purusha and Prakriti, in Ayurveda, we talk about the Purusha and Prakriti. Mostly the Prakriti, when we talk about what's your natural state, how did you come into the world? What's your DNA blueprint? That's what we're talking about, Prakriti. We're going to dive into this pretty extensively today. The Purusha and Prakriti are kind of like the yin-yang principle. It's complete possibility and then bringing something into manifestation. It's very, very kind of the beginning of creation. Your creation and also the creation of the cosmos. So then we get into the cosmic intelligence. This is the intelligence of the entire universe, which this is part of you too. You have access to all this cosmic intelligence. And then you have an individual intelligence. Then we have the ego, ourself. This is where we are kind of feeling distinct from the universe. This is about I, me, mine. And this can cause a lot of issues in our lives. So from there, this is kind of going from the most subtle, dividing, and becoming more and more dense. From there, we have the 3 states of our consciousness. And it comes from the identification of your ego, yourself. We have sattva, which is clarity, purity, and radiance. It's very clear. Rajas, which is the dynamic, it's the movement. And then tamas, the stillness, the inertia, the heaviness. Things come into matter, come into form. And you can see from tamas, look down here, tamas, from inertia, heaviness, darkness, matter, we come into, remember these, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. From tamas is where the elements come from. Starts way up here when something's not even manifested, comes through all of these divisions, slowly coming into form, slowly, 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 coming all the way down here into ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Then we're going to understand today how ether is related to sound, air is related to touch, fire is related to vision, water is related to taste, earth is related to smell. Well, how can we perceive these things? Well, look over here. Sattva, the quality of radiance, purity, clarity. Look what comes from sattva, your mind. The pure nature of your mind is sattvic, it's clear. Sattva also, from sattva is formed the 5 sense organs. We call these the organs of perception, the ear, the skin, the eye, the tongue, the nose. So these organs of perception allow us to perceive these qualities, the gunas. The ear allows us to perceive sound. The skin allows us to perceive touch. The eye allows us to perceive light. Tongue allows us to perceive taste. And our nose allows us to perceive smell. Now we're going to dive into this a lot. So if this sounds like, oh, okay, I can see it on paper or on the screen, but wow, okay. Once you start to allow yourself to fully embrace these concepts, it's expansive. It's so expansive. You might have to watch this a few times. When we look at also what comes from sattva are the organs of action. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on this today, but mostly the next class on the mind. And this comes into that kind of concept. But once you perceive something through an organ, then we usually take action on it. So we have the mouth is used for talking, hands are used for grasping, feet are used for walking, genitals for procreating, and the anus for eliminating. So we need to understand that there is a progression from the sense organ, and the organ of action. So we're going to get a little bit deeper into that. This is Samkhya philosophy. So let's start looking at the top layer of this chart, the Purusha, the Prakriti. Okay, so the Purusha, a lot of this information is in every single Ayurvedic textbook, and I'm going to focus on Dr. Laud's book. This is a wonderful book of his Marma Points of Ayurveda. He's written about this extensively, the Purusha Prakriti. He opens every one of his textbooks with this because it's so important. If you get this, then the rest of Ayurveda becomes very, 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 it just falls into place. You know where it is on the spectrum. So Purusha, I'm going to read from his words because they're just so near and dear to my soul. So the Purusha up here is pure, undifferentiated, silent consciousness. It's an ocean without waves. It's pure existence. It's transcendental being. It's choiceless. It's passive awareness that does not take part in creation. It just is. And Prakriti is the creative. Prakriti we look at as the feminine quality. Purusha, we look at the male quality. We don't have to get into that, but yin and yang. This is pure potential. This is bringing potential into manifestation. So Prakriti is the creative will that expresses herself through the form, color, name, shape, and attribute of every object. I love this concept because when you see an object, anything that's been created, you can look around your room right now and look, okay, I see an ottoman, I see a sofa, I see a table. This was made from the creative force that started very etheric and eventually came into manifestation. Everything that we see, the trees, the birds, the soil, all of it started from nothingness, and it eventually came into being. So we'd like to think of the Purusha as being and the Prakriti as becoming. Purusha is silent and unmoving. Prakriti is active and dynamic. Dr. Lund has a beautiful, beautiful sentence here that Prakriti becomes the womb of all creation. So everything in creation gets birthed through this quality of Prakriti, including you. Absolutely. So when Prakriti, this is kind of cosmic and it also applies to the individual. So her first expression, the first thing that comes into form is the Mahat, the cosmic intelligence. So we have individual cosmic intelligence and the intelligence of the entire cosmos that's inseparable. So the Mahat is the intelligent workings of the cosmos. It's infinite. Dr. Lod calls it the supreme cosmic intelligence, which is conscious of consciousness. We won't go into that, we'll spend all day. But this intelligence permeates every aspect of creation. Everything is intelligent, down to the tiniest little cell, and the largest galaxy is intelligent. It has its own intelligence. Then we have individual intelligence, which is not cosmic intelligence. This is our own intelligence, but it's linked, if you choose to go there, it's linked to the Mahat. So we'll spend a little bit more time on that definitely next week. The Ahamkara is the next dense layer. It's the next thing that gets created. It's the next division. So if you think of cells reproducing, the next division is the ego, the ahamkara. It literally translates into I maker. There's separation here. So the ahamkara gives all things an identity. So everything that you see in creation that has an identity has an ahamkara because it's has form. It's not part of this big unlimited possibility. It has divided itself into a tree, into a lamp, into a feather, into a snake, whatever it is, it has an identity. And we know that in our own human way of expressing ourselves, the ahamkara sometimes just takes control. And it's very difficult to tame the ahamkara. So this is where senses play a big role in getting ourselves balanced so that we know there's a lot more beyond the ego, but it has to be tamed. It has to be acknowledged. So now let's look at the bottom part of the Samkhya chart. So after the ego is formed, this is more dense than the ego, these three qualities of our consciousness, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So sattva is the observer. Okay, let's look at the example of if you're looking at something. If you're looking at something, we have three things going on. We have sattva as the observer. It's the entity that's actually doing the observing. Then we have rajas as the act of seeing. So we have the observer that's clear and pure, but then you have to have some movement. You have rajas, that's the act of seeing. And then the object that you are seeing is tamas. It's the form, it's the object. So you can't have an object without somebody looking at it, or the quality of looking. You have to have the observer, the action, and the object. So that's always in motion. Rajas is always in motion. It's the principle of movement in our consciousness. It's very subtle, but it keeps this active process going from being in the state of the observer, the action, and the object. What are you observing? And this is the same with every sense that we have. So now let's go ahead and look at the organs of the senses. So they're more dense. So that's kind of obvious that the organ of the ear, the organ of the skin, because it's in form. But when we look at what is it perceiving, sound, touch, light, taste, smell, mind has to link between the sense organs and what you're going to do with that perception. So again, from sattva, we have this continual play. If the mind can stay clear and the mind can stay sattvic, it's one of the reasons why we try to keep ourselves healthy and clean and balanced and pure, so that our mind can be clear enough with the sattvic quality to be able to take in the right impressions and then take the right action. It's just absolutely fascinating. So we're going to be spending a little bit more time on that in just a moment. But this is an important concept, that we are always connected with this entire spectrum, from the gross, dense qualities that come from tamas, all the way up to the cosmic intelligence, and even the purusha, the soul. Just like we have an individual soul, we have a cosmic connection to the soul of the cosmos. We have a connection with our own being, the own process of creation, as we are connected with the creation of the cosmos. So this is where I know that this is just a Samkhya. It's very straightforward. It's very almost scientific in a way. So we really don't get into kind of a religious interpretation. This is pretty much, you could find something very similar to this in the Big Bang Theory and quantum physics. So a lot of the concepts that were given by these rishis into some of the Vedic philosophies, and Samkhya specifically, are being validated by science all the time, more and more and more. So this is another picture. This comes from Dr. Lodz. So we want to make sure that we can understand that Purusha and Prakriti are always flowing back and forth. There's stillness, and then things are getting created, coming into cosmic intelligence. Your ego, the ego, then the ahamkara, is further divided into sattva, rajas, and tamas. Tamas is further divided into sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Sattva is divided into the 5 faculties or the organs of cognition, this perception, the 5 motor organs, the organs of action, and the mind. So that kind of goes back and forth. From Sattva, we have, these are the organic principles. From Tamas, heavy, come the inorganic principles. So we want to understand that I want to define this. Dr. Ladd always points out that there is perpetual interrelationship. The Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are always in motion. It's never, ever, ever static. So we're continually perceiving, and we are continually having the ability to be the pure observer with the action of perception to something that's very heavy and formed. You can also have perception of things that are in the very subtle cosmos as well. But for this purpose, we're going to focus on what our senses, these senses, are able to do for us. So let's break this down a little bit further into how we use these organs. So this is my beautiful niece, Nicole. She's kind of like the face of Eternal Radiance Ayurveda. So we have our space associated with hearing and the ear, completely interconnected. One doesn't happen without the other. You have to have the ability to perceive hearing, and that's very, very subtle. It's associated with space. Nose, more dense, is associated with earth. Sight, the fire element. Water is associated with taste, and then the skin with the air. So over here we have element, senses, sense organ, action, the organ of action. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more on the next slide, because some of these things are kind of self-explanatory. Some you think, let me just see. So let's take a moment and just look at this. Ether, hearing, the ear. So when you hear the action, you hear something, usually what you want to speak. So those two seem to be very clearly common sense. Maybe it's not, but to me it is. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You have the ear, you hear something, and associated, you want to talk. Air, touch, you have it through the skin. So how is that associated with the air element in the hand? When I was first learning this, this was one of the ones like, okay, what's that really saying here? So try not to get too bogged down with it, but it's very important to know that the sense of touch happens to the skin. So imagine a little baby. What does a little baby first start to do? Grabs. Everything grabs, right? You see the little child, little baby grabbing. They want to feel it, and then when they touch it. So then what does the baby do? They put it in their mouth. They want to taste it. So they're using the tongue to figure it out. But the grasping goes with the ability to perceive. And we're perceiving through our skin, perceiving through touch. And we want to grasp it to feel it with our hand. This also, some books will say this is holding. Fire element, seeing. Okay, we're seeing things because there's light. We see with the eyes. So when you see something, the rishi said, okay, what is natural? You want to walk to go to it. And the action of that is the feet. We don't walk on all fours as human beings. So you can think of this, when I first saw this too, and like, okay, how are the eyes related to the feet? I didn't get that right away. But when I started thinking about it, like, oh, okay, let me think about this. If you're in a completely dark room, black, pitch black, there's no fire element, there's no light. Are you inclined to go walking around? No. With no light, the organ of action is not, it's not natural. But the moment the light comes on, like, okay, I don't have to be still anymore. I can walk. I'm going to go towards something. We have also, like, let's go toward the light, so it's the action, and we take action with our feet. Water, taste, tongue, procreating, and genitals. So this is the genital organs are called in the ancient texts the second tongue. So that also, you need water to reproduce the fluids. We have that as the seventh dhatu in Ayurveda. We have the last dhatu, tissue that gets made, is the shukla, and the reproductive fluid. So this is important. Water has to be there, fluids have to be there in order for reproduction to happen. And then earth, smell, nose, and the anus, because it's eliminating the organ of action. To eliminate, even though we have in Ayurveda other malas, urine, sweat, feces, but it's the anus is the organ associated with eliminating, and it's associated with smell and earth. So these will become second nature too as we get further on in the series. So let's look at how we experience the elements in our bodies. So we don't really think about this very much, but it's really, I don't know. I love this stuff so much, because once you understand where the elements are in the body, what sense is associated with that element, you can do a lot of self-healing. You can figure out what parts in the body are stuck, heavy, dense, sticky, overheated, dried out, simply by knowing this. So let's look at the first, ether. So ether is also called Akash. It's associated with the sound. And we'll talk about this in the next class. It's nuclear energy. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this today. So where do we see this in the body? The ears, the spaces in the cranium, the sinus, nasal passages, the ventricles, thoracic area, the abdominal cavity, the oral cavity. There's a lot of places where there's space inside the body. The respiratory tract, GI tract, all the veins, ligaments, even in our brain, the synapses, the place in between where the nerves are firing, there's space. There's space in between the cells. There are spaces in the channels, the cell channels, tubes in the body, and pores of our skin. All are places where there is space. So this is going to be really fun when we get into class 3, sometime maybe a little bit in class 2, of how to heal and purify these spaces in the body. So the next one, air, we call it Vayu, is associated with touch, and this is electrical energy. And look at this. Each one of these elements becomes more dense. Up here, it's very subtle, the ether. And then look at this. Here, air is made of, associated with both sound and touch in the body. So in air, the air element in the body We have our skin, our lungs, the colon, respiration, circulation, the cytoplasmic and chromosomal movement, your RNA, DNA, the voluntary and involuntary action, and the neurons. So when you get to be really intimate with this, and seems kind of lofty and really intellectual, but it doesn't have to be, but it's important to have an exposure to this before we can know how to purify. We need to know where these things are and the depth that these elements and senses penetrate into the internal workings of our body. So Tejas, the fire element, associated with vision, it's radiant energy, associated with sound, touch, and vision. So you see how every time we get deeper in the layer, there's each of these senses builds upon one another. So we find Tejas, we find fire element, and the vision, sense of vision, eyes, stomach, our digestive enzymes, the liver, neurotransmitters, our cellular metabolism, the nucleic acids, and then all of the Agni of our dhatus. So when we look at the tissues of our body, every tissue has its own Agni, its own fire. So the plasma layer has its own Agni. The blood has its own Agni. The muscle has its own Agni. Agni is another word for fire. The fat has its own Agni. The bone has its own Agni. The bone marrow and nerve tissue has its own Agni. And the reproductive fluid has its own Agni. So when we look at purifying and making sure that the Agni is bright enough, we can use the sensory therapies to help increase the Agni in those tissues to help purify any sort of imbalance and create greater health. It's absolutely fascinating. Apas, the water, it's also called jala, is associated with taste. It's a chemical sort of energy, and we have taste, vision, touch, sound. So in order to have taste, it has to rest upon, it has to have inherent within taste, sound, touch, and vision. Tongue, urine, sweat, the peritoneal fluid, the cerebrospinal fluid, plasma, blood, saliva, digestive juices, the pleural fluid, and the cytoplasm all have to do with water associated with the sense of taste. So you're going to have so much fun with this moving forward in the next couple classes. The earth element, Prithvi, associated with a sense of smell. It's a mechanical sort of or physical sort of energy. And the sense of smell is the heaviest, most dense. Look at all of the senses are involved: sound, touch, vision, taste, and smell, or the gunas, the qualities of those senses, having to do with the nose, the anus, the pelvic bone, the skeletal structure, all of our bones, all of the cartilage, the muscle, tendons, nails, hair, teeth, the flesh, the skin, and the feces, all associated with the earth element. So now that we've learned so much about the qualities, we need to know that each and every one of these, from the most subtle to the most gross, all of these are transformations and pure permutations of consciousness. So each element precipitates from its preceding element. As we trace the sequential unfoldment, it's helpful to keep in mind that the elements, the processes by which they are generated, and the dynamics of their actions and interactions are nothing but the transformations and permutations of consciousness, as waves are simply the shapes and movement of water. Well, this is so profound and so beautiful, and very lofty and very human, very organic at the same time. So No need to digest everything in one bite, but it's nice to take a moment to have a guided meditation on how to become more aware of your senses, the elements as they're in the body. So if there's a question at this time, I'll take it. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and do a guided meditation. Need to get this show stopped here. Okay, so guided meditation can be done now or later. Just pause. If you're watching the video, pause the video and come back to it at another time. I'll try also to separate the recording out so that it's available in a separate place. But try to go ahead and make yourself comfy. All right. So make yourself comfy. This is going to be a meditation coming from Swami Satchidananda Sarasvati's book, A Systematic Course in Ancient Tantric Techniques of Yoga and Kriya. It's a fabulous, huge book that is chock full of life wisdom. So this is a nice meditation. So get comfy. It's a very simple meditation. And Swami Satchidananda Sarasvati, I didn't have the opportunity to meet him before he left his body, but every one of my early teachers came from his lineage, every single one. So I feel intimately connected with Swami Satchidananda Sarasvati to this day, and just an absolute divine soul. And he says that this is a very simple method. It's intended to make you more able to observe and feel the different parts of your body. Your awareness is going to be directed to different parts, and you'll have to feel the accompanying sensations and try to create a mental picture of that part of the body. And he reminds everybody, if you can't do this, don't worry, just try. Remember, the aim is to get to the point of being an observer, to be a spectator to the different parts of the body. Try not to lose yourself in the mind or the thinking process. Just try to be aware. Try to be an observer. Try to create the sattvic, that place of sattva, where you are connecting and training the consciousness to observe. And observe the mental process. We know that the mind comes from sattva. So when you are training your mind just to be the observer, this is kind of the hardest part, because we usually tend to lose ourselves in our thoughts. So if you find your mind drifting off into thinking, that's the job of the mind. That's just the natural tendency of the mind. But this is where going to that more subtle layer, not the mind, but into the sattva, where the ability to be the observer resides. Keep trying to come back to that point of just observing and not allowing the mind, like an untrained puppy, to keep you focused on following the senses. Right now we're trying to observe and build awareness so that we can learn to train our senses, to heighten our senses. So go ahead, find a nice comfortable part, a nice comfortable place to lie down. And I'm going to play this background music. If you're not going to have your eyes open, but this is our cosmic space journey that we're doing into the cosmos of our bodies. I'm going to be silent for a moment while you find a comfortable place to nestle in. It's nice to lie down in a comfy posture. comfy, palms. Try to have the palms facing upward, body's completely relaxed. And just wiggle and move the body for just a little bit so that you get all the wiggles out, get all the wiggles and jiggles out. Start to take deep, slow breaths. Relax. Breathe in very slowly. Exhale. Inhale slowly. Exhale. Slow the breath. And exhale. Become aware of your body, your beautiful body, your divine body. And make sure your eyes are closed. And try to create a mental picture of your body and feel your body. Be a witness, be an observer, be aware that you have a body. Now try to become of your senses. Try to become aware of the perceptions your senses are giving you. And try to observe as many sensations as you can throughout your entire body. Become aware of as many sensations as you can throughout the entire body. Feel as many sensations as you can throughout the entire body. Now begin to become aware of the skin. Be aware of the skin on your right foot. Be aware, it might be difficult at first, but begin to feel, is your foot cold? Is it warm? Does it feel tense or tight? Just feel on the right foot. Slowly move your awareness to the right calf, the right thigh, all the time being aware of the sensations in the skin of the right calf and the right thigh. Feel that your sensations are affecting your body, not the mind. Feel that your sensations are affecting the body. Try to feel the sensations in the leg and no place else. And now begin going over to the left foot. Be aware of the skin sensations in the left foot. Is your left foot cool? How does your left foot feel? What are the sensations? Just feel it. Feel the skin on the calf, left thigh. Now begin to take your awareness to the fingertips of the right hand. Create a mental picture of your hand at the same time. Feel the sensations of the right hand. Feel whether the right hand feels hot or cold. flow with the awareness of the sensation of the skin in the palm, the wrist, the right forearm, and the right upper arm, all the way to the right shoulder. Being way aware of the sensations that are happening in the right arm. Be aware. And let's move your awareness to the left hand. Feel the fingertips of the left hand in your mind. Be aware, observe. What are the sensations in the left hand? What's the temperature? Glide your awareness of the skin along the palm, the wrist. Glide up to the inner elbow, the upper arm, all the way to the shoulders. Creating awareness, creating sensation, being more and more aware. Begin to take deeper breaths. And now let's take our awareness all the way up to our cheeks. And the cheeks are a really sensitive area of the body. So you should feel a little bit more ease in detecting the sensations. What are your senses telling you? What are you perceiving in the cheeks? Try to create a mental picture. Do your cheeks feel sensitive? Do they feel warm? Do they feel cool? Do they feel tingly or dull? Just be aware of the cheeks. Breathe slowly. Let's take our awareness to our lips. Do they feel dry? Do they feel moist? What information, what senses are coming through the lips? The skin is taking in perception. Take the perception into the tongue. Can you feel the saliva? Does the tongue feel moist? Does it feel dry? Take your awareness to the ears. What sounds do you hear? Breathe slowly. Be aware of the sounds coming into the ears. And feel that they are not really affecting your being, you're only watching them. Observing the sounds. And be aware of your eyes. Roll your eyes around, keeping your eyelids closed. And feel your eyeballs roll around inside. Notice any sensations that occur from the action of rolling your eyeballs underneath the closed eyelids. Maybe you see different patterns or colors that occur in front of your closed eyes. Simply be a witness, observe. Now let's take your awareness to the framework, the structure of your entire body. Create a mental picture of your skeleton, the structure that's making up the body. Feel that the whole body is supported and held in shape by your bones. Be aware. Feel the weight of the bones. Allow yourself to perceive this beautiful structure, giving yourself form. Feel the bone connecting the knee to the foot in the right leg. The bone that's connecting the knee to the foot. The bone that's connecting the knee to the thigh, to the You don't need to give these names. Allow yourself just to feel, experience, sense all the bones in the foot, all the bones in the lower leg, all the bones in the upper leg, the bones of the hip. Let's feel the bones in the left leg. Feel the bones in the left foot. Feel the bones in the lower left leg. Feel the bones in the upper left leg. Feel the bones connecting the foot with the ankle, with the shin, with the knee, with the thigh, with the hip. Breathe deeply. Be the observer. Let's take our awareness to the bones in the right arm. Feel the bones in the hand of the right side. Feel the bones connecting the hand to the wrist, to the bones in the arm, to the elbow, to the shoulder. Feel the bones holding together the structure in the right arm. And let's take your awareness to the left side. Feel the bones in the left hand, the left wrist, the left forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, all giving the body structure. Feel the weight of the bones. Feel how the bones are connected to one another. Let's take a big deep breath. Big exhale. Let's take our awareness into the chest. Take a mental picture of the structure of the chest. The chest is kind of the shape of a box. Nice and big. It's closed off at the top by the shoulders. Breathe into the chest. Feel the structure of the ribs. Feel the structure of the clavicle, the sternum. Breathe deep. And be aware of the spinal column now, from the top to the bottom. Breathe slowly and take your awareness to the base of the spine. Try to be aware of the different parts of the spinal column as you move your awareness from the tailbone, the sacrum, the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine, the cervical spine, all the way up to the top. And with practice, take your awareness up the spine and back down. Feel your awareness traveling up from the base of the spine all the way to the top. And feel your awareness flowing down the spine all the way from the top to the bottom. Up the spine and down the spine. Up the spine, observing the sensations as you go. Down the spine, observing as you go. Just take a big deep breath. Let it go. feel the entire body again, the entire body, the whole body, every part of the body. If possible, try to see a mental image of the body. And as you're taking a mental assessment of the body, taking a mental observation of the body, how many senses can you perceive in the body happening all at once? Can you perceive deep, deep, deep in the inner workings of the body? Can you perceive in the outer limits of the body? Can you be aware of the processes going on inside the body? Let's take our breath, make it bigger, more full. And start to feel the contact points of the body on the floor. What parts of the body are touching the floor? Feel deeply what parts of the body are touching the floor. Take bigger breaths. Feel the weight of the body, feel the fullness of the body, feel the shape of your body. Keep the eyes closed and slowly make movements. Big breaths, move the body, maybe you stretch. Keep the eyes closed at first. Big breaths. And when you're ready, gently and slowly open your eyes. This is the end of the practice. You need to move, eventually rocking side to side, coming up to a nice seated posture. And come all the way up to a seat. So our next class, before the next class, we have a little bit of homework to do. So before the next class, try to go into nature every single day as much as possible. Try to walk with the bare feet onto the grass or even gravel. Feel the connection. How do you perceive the sights and sounds in nature? Make this a priority this week. Go out into nature every day, even if it's sitting on your patio. Observe, connect with the movements of nature every single day as much as possible. Be aware of your senses and the elements in everything you do. When you're cooking, be aware of the senses. Look at the qualities of space, air, fire, water, earth. When you're brushing your teeth, when you're interacting with your friends or family, be aware. Start to cultivate awareness of the senses and elements in everything. They're everywhere. And you know, we're not separate. They're with us all the time. And begin to heighten your awareness of the senses. And practice meditation on the 5 elements. This is from Dr. David Frawley. There'll be a PDF in the learning portal. There probably is by the time you're watching this. So there's a beautiful meditation of you can do on each of the elements at any time at all. And the source is given in the PDF. It's from Dr. David Frawley, his book called Ayurveda and the Mind. Beautiful, beautiful meditation. So this was a lot to digest. You might want to review this class a few times, and don't feel that you have to absorb all of this. We're going to be diving into this over the next couple of weeks. And this is a beautiful springboard. We're going to be coming back coming back time and time again to these concepts. So they will be reinforced and eventually will become second nature sooner than later, I'm sure. So the next class is mind, senses, and controlling the senses, controlling the mind. There will be a lot on sensory perception exercises, how to take greater awareness and how to begin to understand how to control the senses and not be controlled by them. And then start our purification processes. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful healing process. I'm so looking forward to this one. Well, thank you so much for observing, for being here. And I will see you at the next class. Thank you. Namaste.